Starfield has released its latest DLC about 1 year after release, and even with decent reviews and an active player base hovering around 10,000 players daily, it still didn't kill Star Citizen. Obviously, these two are very different types of games, really only having the star in the name in common. But that didn't stop people from expecting it to eat into Star Citizen's momentum. So, taking into account the differences and similarities, looking into the big picture, and a new expansion to Starfield that could inject another wave of excitement into the game, why didn't it kill Star Citizen? Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. Starfield and Star Citizen really only have the fact that they are in space in common with one another. One is an MMO based around the idea of living in space, the other an action-adventure RPG based around a narrative story that finds you doing your part in an exploration-focused group that is fighting to preserve humanity. An RPG story with a space backdrop, a wannabe MMO focused on emphasizing life in space. Starfield is probably more likely to be competing with something like Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Destiny 2, or even No Man's Sky. This key difference in genre is one of the main reasons neither game would kill the other. They're both just offering different experiences. And the only thing that can kill Star Citizen really is Star Citizen. But in the great year of our Lord 2024, when Netflix and Epic Games are seen as competitors for people's attention, the comparison can still be made to an extent. Despite the unbelievable amount of time it has taken to build Star Citizen, there's no denying it still offers an experience you really can't get in any other game. It's not the best experience, but it feels like something that offers you a look at an innovative future in gaming, and that certainly counts for something. Starfield, for many people, still feels like a game that was built for the previous generation of consoles. It's not a bad game, I quite enjoy it as a kick-back and relax kind of experience, but many folks looking for a space experience want to experience it in slightly different ways, which Star Citizen does offer more than Starfield. The latter definitely succeeds more when it comes to narrative design, character involvement and growth, NPC interaction, RPG elements, and a story, making it better suited for those who enjoy Bethesda games, a story-based RPG environment. But take the ships, for example. In Starfield, my main focus with my ships is of course to make something that looks cool, but also to make sure I have the various rooms I need, a place for research and crafting, somewhere for the crew to sleep, enough components to fight off pirates in space, and a storage hold to bring all the things along with me. Outside of that though, I mostly experience my ship by walking around inside, outside, and watching it fly around in loading screens. There is some fighting to be had, but the combat experience doesn't offer a huge amount of depth from what I've seen. And the need to diversify my ship selection isn't particularly high. It's certainly better than some things, but as far as the ship experience goes, besides the dogfighting, this is still pretty similar to something like Mass Effect 3 I experienced 13 years ago. Star Citizen ships actually don't let you build what you want, which can be pretty disappointing, and the ships that are in the game are woefully underdeveloped at times due to the incomplete nature of the game. But the game still gives you a huge amount of agency in your selections. You can choose ships for their carrying capacity, whether they carry their cargo on the exterior or interior. You can pick a mining-focused ship or a salvaged-focused ship, something for single-seat dogfighting to make your way up as a bounty hunter, or group-focused gunship for more engaging multi-crew battles. Your general all-purpose ships can have little bits that make one choice more attractive than the other. A tractor beam for better cargo manipulation there. This ship may have a defensive turret for added protection, while its competitor simply looks more like the Mass Effect ships of yore. Perhaps you want the weird alien ship that launches you from a completely different orientation, or you'd like the larger ship that actually comes with a small snub ship docked to it so that you can use it for ferrying around or defending the mothership. There's a lot of variability in the game with over 100 unique designs to ships, and the detail involved makes it feel like your choice of ship is more impactful to your playstyle. And obviously, with the ability to create ships yourself in Starfield, you have more choices in that game. But the level of design, iteration, and detail between these two games when it comes to spaceships is worth noting. And as we see new features come online to make the interiors of Star Citizen ships have more functionality, it's good to remember this game is really far from being complete. Squadron 42, the single-player game that's actually more appropriate to compare to Starfield, has taken up most of the company's focus and time. Way too much of that time. So until that game is complete someday, Star Citizen continues to see continuous balance, ship changes, weapon tweaks, and flight model updates that leave ships feeling different throughout the years. And that's another major reason that Starfield wouldn't actually unmask Star Citizen, as some might say. The game is always changing. It's not released. It's broken. It's in an alpha state. And as much as the studio wants to market it to you like it's a playable now released game, it's not. It's changing a hell of a lot more than any game you'll see in even early access, as major systems are only just coming online. The in-depth flight model, the power management and engineering systems, the reputation system, proper tutorials and guides, all these things are in flux, which can make the game a pain. But it also keeps it interesting. All MMOs release regular content updates to keep the community engaged, but Star Citizen is also releasing full-on feature updates as the game is built, which means one year cargo hauling might be the hot topic to check out, and the next it could be salvaging. This keeps players on their toes, and while it won't always be the case, it is a big reason players return right now, even if it's only for a couple of weeks at a time. And it points to a larger reason players stay interested. There are simply more types of gameplay getting updated more often. In Starfield, mining is a supporting task, used to complete goals, participate in crafting, and progress in base building. All of this is additional gameplay, but the mining itself is incredibly simple. In Star Citizen, you have the opposite problem. Mining goes into depth similar to games like Elite Dangerous. Here you have different minerals to pursue, different characteristics to those minerals, instability and resistance values that are best handled by different types of mining lasers, subcomponents and gadgets that can be used with those lasers, FPS, vehicle, and ship-based mining that all work a bit differently. All of this then ties into refining gameplay, which admittedly is not very well developed, but creates opportunities for cargo haulers, security forces, and even pirates to get involved. The problem then is a big one. The economy, base building, and crafting are still nowhere near a place that emphasizes something like mining the way that Starfield does. So you get that expanded gameplay, but you don't have much incentive to pursue it other than to earn more money. And that's the big issue with Star Citizen itself. They're starting to bring together all these game systems, but they don't really interweave or give you much incentive to pursue them much past making money and just trying out the new gameplay for a bit. Whether it's mining, bounty hunting, FPS mercenary missions, cargo hauling, or even piracy, the missions themselves are still in development. And it shows how Star Citizen succeeds in scalability and potential due to its multiplayer nature, but it also brings focus to the fact that it's still pretty incomplete. Starfield has a really obvious advantage when it comes to modding, and even that modding will likely lead to a somewhat enjoyable multiplayer experience at some point. But Star Citizen is really much more fun to play in groups. My own org hosts weekly events that sees players tackling large salvage missions, taking over huge ground locations, and going on mining expeditions together. Because the overall variability of gameplay lets everybody take on a slightly different role that they prefer. Like I said before, you could be the cargo hauler for your friends who are doing the mining. You could be the salvager of the derelict ships while your org takes the materials back to the city to sell. Or you could stick to combat medic gameplay for your group moving through security bunkers and space stations. It becomes very difficult for a single-player, story-focused RPG to kill a multiplayer, multi-gameplay-focused space sim light when you consider the breadth of why people are playing the video games they like. Even if both of these games were the best in their category and had a huge amount of overlap, there are still plenty of reasons for players to try out both. But there's just no beating a first-person multiplayer experience with a ton of detail in space, even if it is incredibly incomplete and janky at the moment. I have no doubt that at some point another similar game will come along to provide some fresh competition and steal away some of the player base, and if they can accomplish the same goals more effectively, more power to them. But at least at the moment, Starfield was definitely not aiming to be that game. Where Starfield absolutely does eat Star Citizen's lunch, though, is when it comes to NPC interactions, story elements, narrative, and moddability. Both games suffer from quite a few glitches. But when it comes to the things you'd expect from a finished game, Starfield excels. For Star Citizen, it's all about the potential still. That's both good and bad, and it's why I tell most people not to play at the moment. It's still in alpha, it's a rough experience, and it offers some amazing opportunities that many of the players don't want to leave behind. But it's still a pain to get into and learn, and it has problems that frustrate even the most excitable citizens. But for a game that proves year after year that it can continue to grow and progress in various ways, there's always the potential of what comes next. And despite each of those years players predicting its downfall and burnout, it continues on. Starfield was one of those games that some predicted would continue the downfall of Star Citizen. It hasn't. But it has proven that people are looking for a good space game. People want a casual, complete, novel space experience. And I think because of Starfield, we will see more space RPGs and action-adventure games get more attention in the coming years, and that's overall just good for the gaming industry. Because Star Citizen definitely doesn't offer those things. It's not casual, it's not complete, it is a little novel, and in that sense, it goes further than most. From being able to fly from the city you spawn in all the way up into orbit, to being able to land anywhere on any planet you can see and drive around in a vehicle that you loaded into your own ship, exploring caves for minerals and loot, or skimming over the water with your friends as you just enjoy the different types of sunsets on different planets. There is both a lot to experience and simultaneously not very much to experience in Star Citizen that you can't quite do in Starfield. And when you get to seeing the direction of the design of the game loops that are supposedly in development, and the possibility of just choosing your own path to live through in a game with a persistent spacefaring economy and conflicts that you can choose to take part in or completely ignore as you go off on your own, you may start to understand the anticipation that many have for the game and where it's headed. It both keeps people interested and also comes off as pretty sad because we are like 11 years into development, and you'd expect there to simply be more. Seriously, even at the current state, people are more interested in just watching the development and seeing where it goes than playing it all that much. That's not a sign of a good gameplay experience, it's a sign of good potential, and I covered this phenomenon in detail on a video later this year if you want to learn more. But if you're looking at the game that has released, is putting out DLCs that offer 10 to 15 more hours of gameplay, and is likely to not change too much in the future, and then comparing it to a game that is only just getting its second star system, releasing a single player campaign, and puts out 2 to 4 major updates every year, it can at least make some sense why the former didn't necessarily kill the latter. Now, I'm not trying to tell you Star Citizen is a perfect game. It's not even a game, this is still a tech demo. What I'm trying to explain here is the only thing that can kill Star Citizen is Star Citizen itself. If it stagnates and does not continue to show signs of heading towards a fun experience, it will slowly die. If it does not reach the big goals it has set out, server meshing, a dynamic economy, a progressive reputation system, and a functioning law system, it will flounder. But for now, despite the many disagreements the player base has, from the flight model to the cargo hauling mechanics, the level of realism the game has to the time it takes to travel places, the game continues to build something that people want, and other games have yet to replicate. And that's why Starfield did not kill Star Citizen. That, and they are completely different games. Thank you for watching this one. There's way more to say about this than this tiny little video could fit, and I feel like at this point I've said the same things 5 times. So if you'd like to go into more depth about how Star Citizen is good and also kind of terrible at times, I'm happy to discuss it with you on my live streams. I host chatting shows every Monday where we go into detail and just take a Q&A approach to the topic of the week. And I do some gameplay, podcasts, and other things throughout the week, both here and on my Twitch channel. I also post all my podcasts and deep dives on my second channel, Space Tomato 2, if you want to check those out. And if you'd like to support what me and my wife are doing on this channel, you can check me out at Patreon or as a YouTube channel member down below. That'll get you exclusive videos every month, live access to the podcast, behind the scenes looks, and at certain levels, your referral code on our referral code randomizer under every video. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.